happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on Second City Gridiron. Follow at Second City Gridiron for all your Bears news. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already, and the audio-only versions on Spotify, iTunes, etc. Do the same. Hit that like button. Tell your friends it is the season of giving. Look up the great articles our cohorts write as well at Windy City Gridiron, at WC Gridiron on social media. Such great journalists as Lester and Jacob. All those folks. Speaking of those folks, making monsters, Bear and Balanced, Bear Banter, Bears Banter, Bare Bones, Bears Over Beers. The list goes on and on. Keep up with the Bears all year long with us. I'm at the Real Evan Mac, at the Real Evan Mac on social media, and joined as always by my co-host. He's finding joy in the ordinary. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to stab someone. Thinks Chris Broussard should retire from broadcasting, and he's watched Love Actually 8 times already this month. He's at Ross Reed on social media. It's Ross Reed, folks.
I haven't heard that before. What did you say? Finding love in the ordinary? What was it?
Find joy in the ordinary. You could also
find joy in the ordinary.
You could also find love in the ordinary. You haven't heard this? Yeah. Find joy in the ordinary?
I have not heard this.
You're kidding me. You didn't watch that broadcast? So they started talking about it in the broadcast. It was some quote from, I forget even which NFL quarterback it was. I think it was like C.J. Stroud said it. And they just repeatedly said that finding love in the ordinary for Caleb Williams. It was just like, shut up. And then the score kept going on and on.
Then it was.
Anyways, let's get back.
He threw one of the most unordinary passes of all time.
Right. Yeah, that's not ordinary at all. Yeah, let's get back to your favorite Love Actually character in a little bit here, Ross.
I'm not a big Love Actually guy. I don't like the sappy romantic Christmas movies. I think like you're double dipping. Like Christmas is already like sappy enough, and then you got to add like a romantic comedy into it. I'm out. Give me just a traditional Christmas movie, preferably with a young child at the center of it.
Excuse me?
Yes, I know. That's all. Give me like a Home Alone or a Grinch, something like that, right? Like a Christmas Story. All the great Christmas movies have like young children. Miracle on 4th Street. Almost said 35th Street. That'd be if the White Sox won another World Series.
Hey, there you go, my friend. All right, young children aside and leading roles for Ross in Christmas movies. I'm with you. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of hijinks like that, or Chevy Chase in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about the Bears for most of this show, as it is Hate Week Part 2, and we're talking about the Bears just whooping the Browns and talking about the unordinary performance that Caleb Williams put out against the Browns and what to look forward to, and dissect those matchups against the Packers coming up this Saturday night game. How about it? And then, of course, we'll talk about the NFL news as the playoffs. It's going to be a very pivotal 3 weeks, not only for the NFC North, but for the whole NFC, AFC playoff picture right now. We'll bid adieu to the Chiefs' current dynasty the way it looks now, just from bad to worse over there. Talk about Phillip Rivers' performance. He's got insurance for his 10 kids until 2031, Ross. You should have also come out of retirement for that.
Shots, not checkers.
That's right, baby. Those 10 kids are expensive. But we begin, of course, as usual, with the Chicago Bears. And 10 wins on the season. 10 wins. Never felt so good. Quite outstanding. 10-4. First in the North, back where they belong. I'm very pumped about it. Let's hope this is right. Nope. Oh. Yeah, turn up. There it is. And so, good, better, best indeed. We were kind of waiting for a good beatdown like this. Not that Eagles game, which is pretty recent, within the last month. Not that wasn't a pretty clear beatdown of another team. Not to mention a road game, but for the Browns to go to Soldier Field like this, we talked about trap game last week, and that was thrown around a lot during the broadcast and the lead up to it. You never want to look past a team like that. And the Bears never did. 31-3. There was just never any point in the game where you doubted that they would come out with a win. DeAndre Swift with a couple touchdown runs. Luther Burden stepping up nicely in place of Rome, who is dealing with that foot injury that we'll get to in a little bit here. He had 84 yards on the day, even though he's injured an ankle. We'll talk about that shortly as well. But Caleb with those couple touchdown throws, one which was unreal to DJ Moore, which was really incredible. The defense, 5 sacks for the Bears defense against Shadur Sanders. Marco Jackson had himself a game playing opposite TJ Edwards. The Bears defense also had 3 interceptions. One quite literal takeaway from Jalen Johnson that was an amazing interception in the end zone, basically preventing a touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. Very complete game. There were spots where they were not perfect, certainly, and kind of like lagged, like end of second and start of the third quarter. But to not allow that other team to get in the end zone speaks volumes about this football team, and special teams also pretty good for the Bears. Devin Duvernay with a couple great long kick returns. That throw to DJ Moore, put it in the Louvre, and shout out to Ryan Drost of Second City Gridiron Bears Over Beers, who put that side by side on social media. That never even occurred to me, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is so similar." It got a lot of traction on social media, and even Caleb Williams said, "Like it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. It's damn similar, man." And an incredible throw nonetheless, where he was asked about the throws he can make, and he said, "I can make any throw." In a press conference, like, you just love to hear that from your quarterback, and you love to see the confidence from the young man. A dominant game, but Caleb's getting all the headlines for right reason. What did you like from the performance, and was there anything you didn't like from the performance against the Browns, Ross?
I first have to say, as somebody who woke up Sunday morning hungover from an office party the night before, where I sang Kanye West "Heartless" on karaoke after a couple of beers and some Maker's Marks. But for the people, both the fans and the players who endured the elements for that game, I woke up on Sunday and nestled up on my sofa in the fireplace and Uber Eats some food. God bless all of you that were in Soldier Field that day and braved the elements. I think the players, especially the Bears players, for them to come out there and have that impressive performance like that at home, I think speaks volumes to their just temperament, the adversity, and I think also the coaching staff and how they had them prepared, because it looked like 2 different football teams out there. And I know there's a big talent discrepancy between the Bears and the Browns, but they were still, I think, for the most part, very well coached. You saw it even from the beginning, opening kickoff with Devin Duvernay, and he was, fired up. So I think the good was them just playing a complete game in all 3 phases, and I think that's the most impressive thing is the defense was able to keep the run game in check. Rookie, Quinshon Judkins wasn't able to do anything on the ground. I thought Shadur Sanders had a pretty poor performance. I thought it was largely due to what Dennis Allen and that defense was doing. And then on offense, they kept the chains moving. They got the football in the end zone multiple times. I thought, given the elements as well, Caleb Williams was very, very impressive. He was living up to that Iceman moniker. For you to go out there and have a virtually flawless football game in the 4th coldest game of all time in Soldier Field is very impressive. And shout out to DeAndre Swift too. 2 touchdowns, 98 yards, 5.4 yards per carry on the ground. I mean, he's really just done a 180 from last year to this year. And guys stepping up. Luther Burden at this point is becoming statistically one of the most reliable wide receivers in football right now. He had 7 targets and caught 6 of them for 84 yards. And the guy just gets open, catches everything. He had 1 drop on Sunday, or else it would have been 7 for 7. So it's just a really impressive game all the way around. Unfortunately, there's a few lingering, nagging injuries that we'll get to going into the Saturday, but I think you hit it on the head. It was good to finally see a game where they felt like they were in control from start to finish. 14 points in the first quarter is impressive. Second quarter was a little bit of a lull, but they come back and they get another 14 points in the third quarter, and then cap it off with a field goal in the fourth quarter. It's just a very impressive win from start to finish. And that's a testament to the players going out there and handling business in that weather. And I think Ben Johnson and his coaching staff as well.
A very complete game, as you pointed out, when you're winning so soundly 31-3. And yeah, again, the 4th phase, very important there too. My brother was one of those in attendance, and just completely freezing your tails off, wearing 10 layers, whatever you need to do, snowsuits, be damned. And, you talked about the Iceman in this game, and it was one of those games where we want to see Caleb really build that confidence and slinging it. I think, the critique has been on his completion percentage, on the accuracy for Caleb Williams. We know the escapability is unreal, but he's getting compared to Drake May and other guys who are really, young and up and coming quarterbacks right now. And Tom Brady was talking about some concerns for Caleb Williams' accuracy. I mean, he's not all the way there, but remember, it's his second year. And, there were certainly some drops from open receivers, too. I remember Zacchaeus dropping him. A Nunn guy drop in particular that could have went for longer, sort of like screen pass plays. And, he could have padded his stats even more, but really slung it for the most part. And to make that throw to DJ Moore in the end zone, it takes a certain amount of cojones right there, right? And you have faith that your guy is going to come up with it, and perhaps have faith that it's just your day, and the Browns defense is just terrible. For the most part, the Bears certainly just stuck with what worked, but, found big chunk plays to Loveland, getting him involved. And obviously those 6 catches from Luther Burden were great. Like he was electric for sure. And DJ Moore stepping up big, in a week where all the talk on the radio and around the media was saying, you're paying this guy a lot of money to not be catching passes at this point and not be as involved in the offense. Well, now you look at Rome, and we'll talk about that after we talk about the defense a bit, missing potentially extended time. DJ Moore really needed to step up, and with both him and Rome and Luther Burden kind of, injury prone right now, DJ Moore will have to step up big time in addition to Loveland and perhaps Duvernay and Zacchaeus. But that defense, Austin Booker, complete game from them too. And what I love too was the Browns were driving in the fourth quarter, nothing to lose, and a lot of teams would just give up the touchdown at the end. But with time expiring, they were bend not break, and I feel like the Browns tried to throw the kitchen sink at them, and sure enough, only had that one field goal on the day. And the good news with that Bears defense is potentially Tremaine Edmonds coming back, which seems like a real quick turnaround for him. But you have TJ Edwards back in form. DeMarco Jackson really just put on a show, and he's stepped up so well when Dennis Allen and Al Harrison company call him up and really and on this note of the secondaries, like Nashawn Wright still playing, an all-pro level at this point a lot of the time. The same could be said for Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard. I know he was thanking the city of Chicago and the fan base. Like, that's with both safeties, contracts expiring after this year, you're going to have a tough decision, but it's hard to, you might end up signing both of them perhaps, but Byard, really quite a leader on and off the field. But this defense, they've got some good momentum, and they're definitely going to be hitting the film room right now, getting ready for Green Bay on Saturday, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, the defense, it was it was a full effort by committee. I mean, you talked about Austin Booker. He led the team on Sunday with 4 QB hits. He seemed like he was in Sanders' face a lot of the game. Even TJ Edwards had 2 hits. He led the team in tackles with 9 total tackles. And I thought the defensive line played well. The Browns were banged up coming into this game in terms of what they had on their offensive line. We saw former Bear Tevin Jenkins go out there and get the start, and he got hurt, which is the basically the MO of Tevin Jenkins' whole NFL career. But they did a great job, I think, of rotating guys in there and getting some bodies in there, knowing that the weather was going to be a factor. Even Tryon Shionka, who's a guy that they traded for, that came from the Browns, was able to get out there, and he even had a QB hit. And Jalen Reeves-Maybin was out there, who also subsequently just got released off the practice squad today after he was called up, which also led you to think that Tremaine Edmonds it might be playing for sure this Saturday coming up, and a guy like DeMarco Jackson goes back to strictly being a special teams player. But I think this was really, really impressive. I think the takeaway, as this team is now 10-4, they're just really well coached on offense and defense right now, and I think it's gotten better as the season goes along. And these guys are more comfortable with each other. I think the coaching staff is more comfortable with the players on the field, and you see it. These defensive players, they're typically within the right position. They're able to disguise their schemes a lot more. A guy like Nahshon Wright has been, coached up so much. He should have had an interception on Sunday. He quite frankly, he dropped it. So he should have, continued his league leading streak. And, I tweeted out on Sunday, as much as we don't want to see it as Bears fans, we might have to say goodbye to Al Harris, because he might be getting a defensive coordinator job sooner than later, because what he's done with that secondary is absolutely terrific. Even with Kyler Gordon out, and you pick up Nahshon Wright, who was on the practice squad from the Vikings, and then you go out there and you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson halfway through the season, and he's been an impact player for you. And the way Byard has been able to play at such a high level at this point in his career and his age. And then you start seeing Jalen Johnson. He looked a little bit more comfortable on Sunday than he did the previous week. So you can tell he's starting to get his feet underneath him, starting to get his stamina back, his strength back, and which is great, because we're going to need him on Saturday and through the rest of the year. So, again, just overall, the players executed, but I really look towards this coaching staff saying they really got these guys off the mat, off of that Packers loss. Like you said, like at the beginning, this could have been a letdown game, and it was anything but the sort. You could tell they were going to go out there and say, listen, we're going to play our brand of football, and we're not going to let Shedeur Sanders beat us in the cold at home, put pressure on him, and they delivered. He did not look good at all.
But just a laughable take that Chris Broussard had, saying that he would outplay Caleb Williams, and sure enough, he did not. He did the tune of 5 sacks and 3 interceptions, looking completely lost out there, because the reality is all injuries, you can't apologize for those opponents in front of you. Packers fans and Lions fans citing a weaker schedule for the Bears than their own. So be it. If that's the narrative you want to take. And then in these last 3 games, pressure's on the Bears to really finish strong, because this is arguably the toughest stretch of the season to finish out, when you have Green Bay hosting at Soldier Field on Saturday. Then you got to go into San Francisco's home field, and then you got to finish with the Lions. So to that end, really complete football is so great to see. And I, echo what you said about the defensive line really stepping up with, Billings and Gervon Dexter getting a sack, Grady Jarrett getting his first sack. And just the secondary. Yes, it's a good problem to have when you have all these coaches doing so well with their units and vying for other jobs. So, take advantage while you have it now. And we'll talk about the injuries now in a minute, as I feel like the Bears got out relatively injury-free. Luther just kind of tweaked his ankle, but, avoiding anything like you saw, like you talked about Tevin Jenkins going out. But on the offensive line, before we switch focus to Green Bay and injuries and all that, Ozzie Trapillo had a tough assignment going against Myles Garrett, and he got his 1.5 sacks, almost went to go break the record against Caleb Williams. But, it's very important to get these reps if you're Ozzie, right? And against this top competition, and you're worried again, with Micah Parsons, if he was playing Saturday, what kind of game he would have. But just this unit, it really speaks volumes how well they were able to pretty much neutralize Myles Garrett. He wasn't wrecking the game completely. And the run game, they just stayed true to that. There was some, it was Ben Johnson, I believe, talked about the pulling block from Jonah Jackson. He got to put a smile on his face as he lay his head on the pillow. Like this line is nasty as any unit out there. And I've been really impressed. And especially when you had questions about left tackle going forward, Ozzie really making that case to be the starting left tackle of the future, in the near future, for the Bears.
It's been, obviously getting 10 wins this season and turning things around is a huge bright spot. But I think Ozzie Trapillo is one of the top 5 bright spots of the season for the Chicago Bears. So, that left tackle spot was a ginormous question mark going into the season. We didn't know if it was going to be Braxton Jones. We didn't know if it was going to be Theo Benedette. We thought it might be Ozzie going into training camp, and he kind of struggled, but he was a rookie. That's what rookies do. They're going to struggle to pick up things at an NFL level right away. And so the fact that you can come out of this season knowing that you have your left tackle for the future, I think is a humongous win for the Bears going forward, because you look at all the guys that they have on the defense that are either going to, some guys are going to get re-signed, some guys are going to walk. You still don't have a viable pass rusher opposite Montez Sweat. You got a lot of question marks on the defense, even though they're playing pretty solid this year. So you're going to have to devote a lot of this draft towards the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. And so that is all the more important that you feel good about your left tackle spot, that you don't have to burn a first or second round pick there, because you know Ozzie can do it going forward, which means you can allow yourself to go after a pass rusher. You can allow yourself to go after an internal defensive lineman and really, really beef up that side of the ball. I mean, we saw what the Eagles did last year. It's a game of trenches, especially as you get to this time of the year and you head into the playoffs and hopefully the Super Bowl. And so the better you are in the trenches, the more of a complete football team that you can be. We feel good about the offensive line right now. Now, as you look forward, I don't want to look forward because there's still a lot of the season left right now as we hopefully go into the playoffs. But at least Ryan Poles knows when he goes into the draft this year, he can focus a lot on the defensive side in the trenches and hopefully find himself a future impact pass rusher and space eater opposite a couple of the guys on that line right now.
Yeah, you figure that's paramount, is to get the pass rusher of the future, where Montez Sweat was kind of neutralized on Sunday, and you just have questions opposite him and along the defensive line, how you could improve that pass rush, even as turnover, I don't know, savvy as the Bears have been able to do that and lead the league in turnovers and force those turnovers. They haven't been able to generate a ton of pressure against, certain good teams, but it leads me to the offensive line comparisons when Caleb Williams talked about them being the Avengers.
Yeah.
Did you like that Ozzie? One was Wolverine, which is not an Avenger, which was hilarious. Joe Tooney is Doctor Strange. Drew Dahlman is Hulk. Darnell Wright would have been more Hulk, but I get as we go along here. Jonah Jackson, Red Hulk, and then Darnell Wright, Bucky, because he has one arm.
Yeah, I did like that one too, which also, I mean, I think he's foreshadowing a little bit. We're going to get a lot more news in the offseason about what Darnell Wright might have been dealing with all year, because the fact that he calls him one arm, I know he's been dealing with an arm injury, but that guy might have a fractured arm right now. We don't even know it. He's just playing through it. So I think Caleb foreshadowed a little bit on there. I love the Doctor Strange comp. Essentially, you're saying, Tooney's the old guy on the field. He's got a little bit of gray in his hair, and he's doing it more with smarts and wits at this point. Yeah, I don't know the Wolverine comp for Ozzie, especially because Ozzie is quite possibly the biggest human being on the football field.
Give him Thor. Yeah.
Right. Give him Thor. And literally Wolverine is like 5'6", 5'7", like 200-pound hamster or something like that. So I didn't like that. I think if you were extending it past Avengers characters, if you're going just Marvel Universe, I thought of Colossus, who of course is one of the X-Men. I thought of even like the Juggernaut, who's one of the villains that goes against the X-Men and Wolverine. But all in all, I think the most important thing is Caleb knows where his bread is buttered right now, and it's sucking up to those guys in front, keeping him clean, and doing all the dirty work right now. I was funny because I was watching the pregame show and they were talking about Christmas presents that quarterbacks gave to their offensive linemen in the past. And, guys get Rolexes and this and that. And they panned to Tom Brady, and he gave his offensive linemen SUVs, which in theory sounded great. But then they put the caveat on, I don't know if you saw this. They said that he only gave it to them on a 1-year lease. So he only gave them a car for a year, and then they had to turn it in, which, I mean, listen, that is classic Tom Brady, just always outthinking everybody. But would you rather have an SUV for a year, or would you rather have like a Rolex? I think is the question.
I'd take the Rolex. These guys can afford their own cars, and I don't know. I think in the watch, of course, is like the retirement gift, right? But I still like that. I think it was like Josh Allen got like golf carts for his squad 1 year, something like that.
The guys don't like to walk, so get them golf carts.
Yes, the big fellas. You get them each an ice bath, something like that for the self-care. But I think the watches are where it's at if you're gonna go something like that, fashionable. They don't need another whip. They've already got something.
They don't. I don't. And a lot of these guys are making so much money too. They can afford all the materialistic things. I feel like always like maybe like an experience, like you just rent out Chicago Cut for the night and be like, all right, you know what? We're going to spend $25,000 on steak and just dessert and potatoes, and we're just going to eat our way through this restaurant. I think that would also be a cool gift. So we'll see. Caleb is going to have to do something for these guys. Yeah. Even though he's still on a rookie contract, he's got money. He's making tons of off-field money and stuff like that. He's going to have to get these guys something special for Christmas this year.
And Caleb, just 12 interceptions in his first 1,000 career passing attempts, which is the fewest in NFL history, which is a pretty incredible feat for Caleb Williams. And, talking about Green Bay as we look ahead, injuries, the biggest concern going into Saturday is certainly the receiving core. When Luther Burden looked like he tweaked his ankle, he was a DNP today in practice. Rome, we know, he re-injured his foot or was ready to go and then hurt it in warmups. How about that back-to-back weeks when a starter is going to come back and they re-injure themselves in warmup? I suppose it's better than in the game, but now the Bears have that tough decision. And ultimately, Rome, are you going to sit out for a week, 2 weeks? How long? If this is a playoff-bound team, then it certainly would make a lot of sense to do that. They've done the same with Jermaine Edmonds and other players on this team. Jalen Johnson coming back, and he's still on a pitch count, but playing pretty well on that pitch count. Gets better every week with his conditioning. So that receiving core puts him in a tough spot because this is such a crucial week of practice. Is Zacchaeus going to get more reps? Is Devin Duvernay going to get a lot of reps? DJ Moore, is he going to be that de facto number one? Are you going to call more plays for Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet? It is a tough wrinkle, but again, if that's pretty much the extent of the injuries right now, which it seems like it is, and again, the good news is Tremaine Edmonds being designated to return from IR. That is the good news, and there's no one, obviously Kyler Gordon, he's on IR again, which is horrible, but it is what it is. The secondary has done without them this entire season. But what do you feeling how it's going to shake out for Saturday, at least in the wide receiving core, Ross?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think I'd probably feel a little bit more optimistic about Luther getting out there on Saturday. Especially even if it was just more of it in a limited capacity, he's on more of a little bit of a pitch count, but it did look like he got a little bit of a high ankle sprain, but I don't think it was too strenuous. I know a lot of fans had tweeted out that, we're sitting in the stands and he was carted off. I think things like that happen more just for precautionary reasons. And you don't want a guy to walk 200 feet to the locker room if you don't have to, right? Like get him into the locker room. I think the Rome and Dunze thing is a different situation. I don't think a lot of people realize, he's dealing with basically a fracture in his foot right now. And if it was 80 degrees outside, it feels a lot better to play on something like that. Whereas you're playing on -4 wind chill, that ground feels like hard concrete. And then it's like pins and needles in your foot. I think every guy that got banged up on Sunday, even the Cole Kmet play, the cold affected it. It brought more pain on than a normal day because things just hurt more when it's freezing cold outside. Even if you bang your hand on a guy's helmet, it's going to hurt a lot more just because the cold is a factor. I do think the Bears are smart in playing it safe with him. I don't think there's any way he was going to be able to warm up and feel good on Sunday in that weather. I think that was just the biggest thing. Now this weekend we're expecting much warmer temperatures, but it's still going to be warmer is like 29 degrees at game time. Like it's not going to be that much better. I think they need to slow play this and get him right, because the other big thing is even when he was out there the weeks before, he was kind of a shell of himself, and you can see it as his production has dipped a little bit. He doesn't have that same explosiveness. He just wasn't comfortable on that foot. And if he can't be as explosive as he wants to, there really is no reason to have him out there. I think there are enough pieces on this offense, especially the way the Bears want to run the football right now, where they can get away with hopefully winning 1 to 2, hopefully 3 more games or so throughout the rest of the season. But most importantly, you want to get him back by the playoffs and get him as healthy as possible. But also on the flip side of it, if you look at the Packers injury report, their list is twice as long as the Bears. This is also the time of year where it's just a war of attrition. Guys are hurt. Guys are banged up. It's a long season. And, it's a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. This is a big reason why I'm always a huge, outlier against extending this regular season. I don't think we need more football and get these guys more and more banged up, even though I know we're selfish and we like football. But it doesn't feel good right now to go into the third week of December as an NFL player, and then you got to turn around and play a game on a Saturday night. So you don't even get that extra day to kind of rest and your body to recuperate. You basically have to be ready to go by Friday, essentially for the Bears, Thursday, Friday, those are the kind of ramp up to down game days. And then they're just kind of resting all day Saturday until they go out there. So I hope that they play cautious with Rome, and especially because of the fact that they play on an outdoor surface in the cold. I just don't think his foot's going to respond well into that until he rests a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and you just don't want to put that asset in jeopardy. It's as far as Rome is concerned. He's clearly won that number one job. You can't, if it's already aggravated, it's doubtful that it will get better if he tries to play through it and thug it out, so to speak. Cole Kmet also, on the injury report, but he put all doubters to rest as far as his knee and ankle injury, which looked real scary on the field on Sunday, but he looks ready to rock. And that's also just from a leadership and blocking standpoint. You really need Cole Kmet out there, which leads us to Green Bay. And Green Bay, yeah, you talked about Josh Jacobs, questionable. Matt LaFleur talked about how he was playing through a knee injury against the Broncos this past week. Just real tough. And I appreciate the meathead. Like, you want to beat them at their best. Like, this is just part of the game when all these teams are not going to be at their fully healthy complement. It's very rare to see Christian Watson avoiding a major injury in his chest and shoulder. And LaFleur said it's kind of just, he truly is questionable for this matchup. So you'd figure, looking ahead to Saturday, it's going to be a lot more Jayden Reed or Romeo Doubs. And going to the pass rush of the Bears, if you have Tremaine Edmonds out there, boy, howdy, that's going to be a huge boost with him and Tremaine Edmonds, or excuse me, TJ Edwards side by side. Like to combine the two in pass coverage. There's few units better than that, and then the complement of the secondary as well as they're playing. You would be hard pressed to see a repeat type of performance that Jordan Love had in Lambeau, beating the Bears 28-21. Where he went off for 4 touchdowns. It's going to be raucous. I know Grady Jarrett talked about challenging the Bears fans to be super loud. It won't be quite as cold, but it'll still be a cold game, similar to that Green Bay one. Perhaps the Pigeons will make an appearance out there, the extra cheerleaders for the Bears. But all eyes are certainly going to be again on trying to force turnovers for the Bears. They've had at least one. They had 3 easily against Shedeur this past Sunday, but what is Caleb Williams going to do? What kind of Caleb Williams performance are we going to get against Green Bay? Been up and down, and I don't think that he remembers that interception, game-sealing interception against Green Bay at this point. But there's a part of it that fuels him, and those mistakes where you got to brush it off and put it in the rearview mirror, so to speak. But as far as Caleb is concerned, even with the injury to Rome Odunze, we saw that. He can still get out there, and he has really come a long way in playing relatively mistake-free football. Huge that Micah Parsons is out. Look for great, the rest of the defensive line for the Packers to try and make life hard for Caleb, but I just don't see it. Rashawn Gary is a pretty good defensive lineman, probably the best defensive lineman. He'll try to step up, but there's no replacing a game wrecker like Micah Parsons. So that's a huge weight off of Caleb's shoulders.
It's by far the biggest X factor of this game on Saturday is I think if you look at that first matchup, which was, only about 10 days ago, I thought Parsons was an absolute game wrecker in the first half. And I thought the Bears were holding him, just being objective most of the time in the second half to try and keep him away from Caleb Williams. I thought Ben Johnson did a really good job this past Sunday in being able to scheme a lot of the offense away from Myles Garrett. If you see it at the first half of the game, he's really running the football a lot to the right. He's got Caleb Williams rolling out to the right, and a lot of the looks were to the right side as Myles Garrett wanted to operate opposite Ozzie Trapilo for coming off the left tackle on the edge there. But not having Micah Parsons out there because he moves around more than any impact defensive pass rusher in the game. He'll line up outside. He'll line up inside. He'll stand up and come from a linebacking position and rush the quarterback. And so it's really tough to keep an eye on him. I think that really just impacts this Packers defense. I think in terms of Caleb Williams, now all of a sudden you feel a little bit more comfortable out there knowing that the Packers, they don't really have a pass rush outside of this. You talk about Rashawn Gary, and he's been a solid football player. That guy also hasn't had a sack in like 7 games. And that's with Micah Parsons being on the football field. And then also they had Lucas Van Ness, who was also supposed to step up and be a young pass rusher for him, since they drafted him a couple of years ago. He didn't practice today with a foot injury as well. So he is also hampered, which means that this Packers defensive line is completely decimated. So I expect Ben Johnson and the Bears to treat this kind of like a heavyweight boxing match early on and kind of lean on them and body blow, kind of run the football, get some push with the offensive line, get them a good lather going, knowing the fact that it will be a warmer night out there than what they just had on Sunday. And they're able to kind of get a sweat and get worked and get, kind of worked up and get going, very similar to that Philadelphia game. And then look for some of the kill shots later in the game. And I think you're going to see a lot more DJ Moore again. But I also think you're going to see the tight ends a lot again. I think this time of the year with the wide receiver situation right now, knowing Dunze is not healthy, knowing that you're probably going to have Luther Burden at best if he plays 70, 75%. This is a big, big day for a guy like Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland. Colson Loveland has turned into he might have the best hands on the team right now. And I think he is a serious, serious weapon, especially after the catch right now. You want to give that guy the football and let him run like a deer in space, because that's exactly what you drafted him for. And he's been doing it well the last couple of weeks. Dante has a question here talking about does Ja'Day Walker, get some burn this weekend? I think you have to bring him up if Rome Odunze doesn't play. If anything, he's not a great route runner. He's actually really bad on special teams too. But one thing he can do if you put him out there for a few offensive snaps is stretch the field. And sometimes you need a guy like that to just kind of push the defense and keep them honest and open up some more spots in the middle of the field for your Lovelands and for your Kmets and for your DJ Morris as well.
Good point. Thanks for the question, Dante. Yeah, and Caleb obviously is going to be set up by the run game. I think with the way that Monangai, and who had a down game on Sunday, even though he had a down game, I think Eric Bieniemy and the rest of this coaching staff has done a really great job of not getting away, and Ben Johnson for that matter, who's calling the plays, just not getting away from the run game, always going back to that. It's really what kind of propelled the Bears to start that comeback against Green Bay. Like, you always got to establish that, I think, again, in the elements, and it'll help open up or play action, getting Caleb outside the pocket where he likes to throw a lot. I don't know if this is a kitchen sink game, but I feel like this is one of those Ben Johnson where he's got some plays. He's like, this is where I get their butts, like this type of Green Bay performance where they want to, he really wants to stick it to Matt LaFleur, even though he's so emotionless. But the defense also has to be licking their chops at this point, where I think, Jordan Love got off kind of easy. He wasn't pressured too much, but, he's not this all-world quarterback throwing for 4 touchdowns every type of game. I think he came back down to earth in a tough game against the Broncos, certainly playing very tough competition, even while losing a couple stars along the way. They played pretty well against the Broncos. It's hard to figure out, which Jordan Love you're going to get, though. And again, in Soldier Field, I'm feeling that the Bears have a good game plan in place against them. You got to look for, certainly if Josh Jacobs is limited, that's going to be real tough for the Packers to get anything going. But the secondary is going to look to do what they've done best and get away takeaways.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you really lean into the physicality of this game right now, despite the fact that the Bears are dealing with some injuries. The Packers are dealing with more injuries. They're dealing with more injuries in their trenches. They've got their running back who's banged up right now. He's in a walking boot today, but he says he's going to play on Saturday. I believe him. But if he's going to play, test him. Like, okay, let's go. This is a grown man sport. And if you want to go out there and gut it out, it's time for the Bears to be more physical with them. So I think that, the Bears teams that have played the Bears are something like 2-9 this year, coming off of playing them. And of course, the Packers lost on Sunday. There's a very similar record with teams that play the Broncos as well, because those are two physical football teams. So I think this is a really tough matchup for the Bears that they need to, for the Packers, that the Bears need to lean on in terms of the physicality standpoint. It's tough to go out there and play that game against the Broncos, going to Denver. Their defense is physical. Their offense is physical as well. You just lost your best player on the football team in Micah Parsons, which is just gutting to them. I want the Bears to go out there Saturday and just smack them in the mouth and really, again, lean on both your defense and offensive lines to kind of get a push on both sides of the football and just make things uncomfortable for them. I think this is almost a mirror game to that Philadelphia game where the Bears really were just the more physically dominant team, especially in the trenches, that made life living hell. And much like the Browns this past Saturday, much like that Eagles game, you want the Packers to look around in the third quarter and be like, I just want to get on the bus and go home. I am tired of getting hit by these guys for 3-4 straight quarters. Like, just get me the hell out of here. That's what you want for the Bears this Saturday. So I will say, I know people want Caleb Williams to throw for 300 yards, and they want Caleb Williams to go for 4,000 yards because we've never seen it before. And that sounds amazing. This is the kind of game where you also want them to run the football 30 to 40 times, and you just want them to shove it down their throats and get those long drives and wear them down, because also you have to think about what this Packers team could look like the rest of the year and into the playoffs. Just physically impose them and wear them down and get out of Soldier Field with a win on Saturday.
Agreed. You get a win by any means necessary, and be physical and making sure you lean on that offensive line, how well they've played. The defensive line, they were inches away from making a different game against Jordan Love and the rest of that defense as far as they're concerned. It goes through Soldier Field this time, which is a huge advantage for the Bears, as they're, they haven't lost since that Monday nighter at home. So it's going to be rocking. I'll be there. Come find me if you're there. We'll give our predictions at the end. Let's talk about Week 15, which just had a ton of great action as well. The Chargers beating the Chiefs to really firmly make sure that they are out of the playoffs. And not only that, just to add insult to injury, Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL. Really brutal for the Chiefs. We'll talk about the implications of that in a minute. The Bills mounting a comeback against the Patriots and saying, don't look now. We win 35-31. Josh Allen with a pretty great day with 3 touchdowns. The afternoon slate, man, was great with the Packers-Broncos game, 34-26 win for the Broncos. They're just on such a tear. They're arguably the best team in football the way they're playing. Bo Nix with 4 touchdowns, Ross, your boy. And the Lions losing to the Rams by 1 score. That was just a shootout, no defense to speak of. But again, the other side of things, at least the best team in the NFC is the Matt Stafford-led Rams. But, Devontae Adams' injury status is a little alarming for Rams fans, but still able to lean on 368 yards from Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua still going nuts. And the Titans and the 49ers beating them handily. And then Phillip Rivers almost getting it in a battle of kickers, really almost getting that win for the Colts in his first start back, which was pretty nuts. It was an 18-16 win for the Seahawks. They improved to 11-3. What else did you notice in Week 15 as I look at the standings? We talked about the NFC North and how tight it is at this point. And, the Bears' journey, if they win against Green Bay on Saturday and the Lions lose, then they're in. And seeding will kind of be determined, but I think they can't get anything worse than the 2 seed is something basically one of the scenarios I heard about. If they started today, talking about the NFC, the Bears would be the 2 seed and Green Bay would be at 7, and maybe it could hold out. So we could be seeing a trilogy perhaps, but I've talked a lot. What else did you see, Ross?
Yeah, you have to even go back to that Thursday night game last week, which is crazy as well, with the Falcons beating the Buccaneers by 1 point, and the Buccaneers had like a double-digit. Yeah, they had a double-digit lead going to the fourth quarter, and then Baker just kind of wet the bed, and then their defense wet the bed. They gave up like a 3rd and long there near the end to kind of let the Falcons kick a field goal. I think you got to start with the injuries, of course. We talked about Parsons already. Seeing Pat Mahomes go out, he tore his ACL. There's some speculation he also tore his LCO, which means that he could miss some time going into next season as well. Those are the things that I just hate the most in all of sports. You never want to see any player go down, get hurt, but especially your star players like that. That's not. If the Chiefs were to end their dynasty, and I think they can bounce back at some point, but Pat Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's one of the great players that we have in our game right now, and you want to see those guys play football every single week and not get hurt like that. So the injuries to me were of course putting the damper on things, but outside of that, I think it was a little bit of a renaissance for a couple guys. I look at Trevor Lawrence. Yes, it was against the Jets, but 5 touchdowns, 330 yards. He's putting it together the last couple of weeks too. I think they got a good one in Liam Cohen. They're starting to figure it out in Jacksonville. And when you get a guy like Pat Mahomes out the way, it opens the door for a lot of other guys that maybe you didn't think about before. All of a sudden, CJ Stroud, who they've won their 6th straight now, and he had 3 touchdowns, and they won 40-20. They're in the team photo. Josh Allen, he kind of told you, he was like, hey, I'm still the MVP. I know this kid over here, Drake May, is good, and he wants to be the MVP this year, but watch what I can do in the second half and in the fourth quarter. And Josh Allen just took over and won that football game. I think that's a game that the Patriots are going to be kicking themselves in the long run to lose there. And then the NFC side of things, the Rams, I think you got, if you're playing the Rams, you got to get them out of LA, because when they're in LA, I feel like they can score 40 points on anybody in the league. And, another injury situation, that Devontae Adams situation, that's a hamstring. I think they've got a quick turnaround this week or through the Thursday night game. So he is probably going to be out of that game, but, we'll see how much time he might miss, or if they just, try and shut him down for the rest of the year. And that also has seeding implications as well. And then you look ahead, the Bears have the 49ers on their radar, and they won that game as well, and they're kind of hanging in there too. So this is the time of year where we start looking at, all right, can the Bears win this week, but also what are the teams around them doing, because it's going to affect seeding. And obviously you want to be able to wrap up a playoff spot sooner than later. You'd like to be going into San Francisco after Saturday, hopefully after beating Green Bay, and saying, all right, hey, let's beat these guys. And week 18 doesn't even mean anything else to us anymore, unless we want to improve our seeding or something like that. And obviously we want to beat the Lions for bragging rights in the NFC North.
It's tight in the divisions, though, for sure. Rams, like you're talking about, love to play at home, clearly, and 11-3. The road would go through them, that's for sure, and they get a tough challenge against the Seahawks on Thursday, a good-looking Thursday night game where Devontae Adams looks like he's unlikely to play, as we talked about. But then the Eagles at 3, Tampa Bay still hanging on to that 4th spot, like a very dangerous 5 and 6 seed in the Seahawks and the 49ers. Again, all of the NFC West making the playoffs would be something else. And San Francisco with a chance to potentially, leapfrog the Rams at this point. And I just don't know who's going to come out on top with the AFC. It's real scrappy. The Texans making a late run with CJ Stroud at the helm. Buffalo Bills, obviously a dangerous 6 seed. The Chargers have beat some really good football teams. The old man and the ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers, leading the Steelers to an 8-6 record. They've beat some good teams too, if they can hold out for that. But Baltimore is right at their heels. And then, like you talked about, that Jaguars team has also just really turned it around. Liam Cohen looks like it's working for them. Drake May and the Patriots 11-3, and the Broncos. Broncos and Rams clinched the playoff spots already, 12-2 and 11-3 respectively. Which leads us to this week, just looking ahead in the scoreboard, and that Thursday night game is huge implications for both the Seahawks and the Rams, and that should be a great one, and the advantage Seahawks when they get to play over in rainy Seattle right now. And then the Saturday slate finally gets some Saturday football with the Bears and the Packers, Eagles and Commanders. Eagles can't really afford to lose many more games, even though the Cowboys are relatively, closely out of it at this point. They should cruise. But then, yeah, outside of that, it looks like Sunday's just weak in that regard. I guess Steelers, Lions, Patriots, Ravens. Ravens really
that game,
in that one, and then a good Monday nighter with the 49ers and Colts. But it's all about Saturday, right, Ross?
It's a big Saturday. We even got some big college football games this weekend. The playoffs start Friday night. There's some mixing in college football games on Saturday, even while the Bears are playing as well. So this is the kind of weekend where you kind of make sure you get all your Christmas shopping done. You get yourself some spice eggnog or do what you need to do, and
or a coquito.
Yeah, some coquito. You hang out with the family early on for brunch, and you kiss your wife on the forehead and say, I'm going to go hunker in and watch about 7 hours of football starting early afternoon on Saturday, and then running back on Sunday as well. But this is what we want. We want it to be festive outside, and we wanted to see some meaningful football as well. And thankfully, we get meaningful football on the lakefront this Saturday. I think that building is going to be absolutely electric, even more electric. It's probably going to be the most electric game we've seen since the Philadelphia Eagles playoff loss, right? That's probably the last time that building was really rocking like that. And so let's hope that it comes up to a better result and go beat these guys, man. Like you want to take the division, you want to stop being the little brother in the division. Here's your prime spot. Go beat them. Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, Chicago Bears, go show the world on the national stage. It's your time right now. It's not 1 year too early. You never know what can happen once you get into the tournament, once you get into the playoffs. So go get in there and go beat these guys, and then show what you're made of, and get some of these nagging injuries healthy. And who says the Bears can't make a run this year, right? Like let's go see it.
No question, Ross. And the college football playoff starts Friday with Alabama and Oklahoma.
Yeah,
that should be 3 games Saturday. Should be. We'll give Bears predictions at the end, but I hate to be a downer, but we got some awful news Sunday with the Rob Reiner news and his wife, and dead at 78, and so active in his work and social life. Ross, you were pointing out that Bear cameo that was so great, and he was so funny, and Wolf of Wall Street, just acting aside, the heavy hitters that he was responsible for, like Spinal Tap and Stand By Me, Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, Sleepless in Seattle, Misery, just a classic. Even before that, he was working on All in the Family, which was kind of before my time. He was winning Emmys for his performances Meathead back then. And Rob and his wife just tragically gone too soon. Some weird stuff to end the year, right? And not only a comedic force, but he was a cinematic force in Hollywood. He was a political activist. He was just super active. Obviously, the son of Carl Reiner, who, was right behind Dick Van Dyke. And Dick Van Dyke, on a positive note, just turned 100, which is incredible for him. But yeah, that's so unfortunate for Rob Reiner, and who had a lot to give to cinema and the world. He was going to hang out with the Obamas that day. Apparently, it's just rough.
It's a terrible situation. It was a terrible story when we saw it unfold Sunday night. But you want to celebrate his achievements, his accomplishments, and what he was able to leave us behind. I mean, you put the lineup, you hit it on the head. He goes from 86. He goes Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, North, which I will still ride for. Shout out to Elijah Wood. And then The American President. That is just an insane run of movies. And they couldn't be more different from each other, where you've got Stephen King adaptations in there. You've got coming of age stories. You've got comedies. A Few Good Men was like a massive star-studded blockbuster at the time that movie comes out. I think American President, especially in this current political climate, has aged so well as a movie as well. And then you talk about, I think people forget, he was one of the driving forces. He creates Castle Rock. And then Castle Rock says, we're going to bank and bet on this comedian and this TV show that we don't know it's going to work, but we're going to go out there and do it. And it turns out to be Seinfeld, which is arguably the biggest sitcom of all time. So he also bankrolls what he did in his career into starting Castle Rock, which gave us Seinfeld. The guy's just a genius. He is a genius in front of the camera, behind the camera, from a executive standpoint. And so, it's really crappy to see. You just see the way people responded to the news, especially people in Hollywood. It lets you know there weren't too many people that had, very bad bad things to say about Rob Reiner. He was just a giant in the game. He was a good guy, and so that one really sucks. That one's going to be missed. I know the Bear went back to shooting this week in Chicago, and their hearts have to be very heavy today, knowing that one of their colleagues that they thought was going to have a recurring role in the season is no longer with us.
Jerry Seinfeld said, quote, next to Larry David and George Shapiro, Rob Reiner had the biggest influence on my career. Our show would never have happened without him. He saw something no one else did when nobody at the network liked the early episodes. He saved us from cancellation. That I was working with Carl Reiner's son, who happened to be one of the kindest people in show business, seemed unreal. I was naive at the time to how much his passion for us meant. Rob and Michelle married right as our show was starting, and they became an imprint for me of how it's supposed to work, each one broadening the other. Their death together is impossibly sad, which is so well said by Jerry Seinfeld, and unfortunate. But again, Dick Van Dyke turning 100. Ross, are you in the midst of, I know you're not into the rom-coms, but have you cracked into your rotation of A Christmas Story and of Elf and all those Christmas Vacation yet, perhaps? You were busy last weekend. You were hitting up the holiday bars and so requires for you.
I want to shout out to the folks at the great folks at Tradita who took care of us on Friday night as well for dinner.
Big baller. Woo!
Yeah, that's why this weekend is going to be a little bit less sociable. And I mean, the cool thing is I am selfishly taking a week off from work next week. Starting from this week, I'll be off for more than that. So. I will plan to be catching up on a lot of holiday movies that I rerun, and I need to go see a lot of movies in theaters that I haven't been able to see as well that I usually see by now. So this is going to be a very, very pop culture heavy next 10 to 14 days for myself in the midst of all this football that we're getting.
He's got his Avatar tickets already, folks. That's it for us. Follow at Second City Gridiron for all your Bears news throughout the week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. Get the audio only versions. There it is on Spotify, iTunes. Do the same. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. A slew of great shows, of course. Bear and Balance, Bears Over Beers, Bare Bones. List goes on and on. Support the network. I'm Evan Mack at The Real Evan Mack. Ross is at Ross Reed. What's your prediction for Saturday, Ross?
I got the Bears winning 23-15.
Boy, that's it. All right.
The weird, fluky, somebody's going for two because of analytics nonsense kind of game.
There you go. I like that. Man, I hate to pick against the Bears at home, so I won't. So they win against the Packers. Christmas comes early on Saturday, and on the lakefront, I'm picking kind of a lower scoring affair. I'm saying 21-19 Bears, but there will be some bad blood, that's for sure. Matt LaFleur will be rocking his John Waters mustache as usual. For now, we say deuces. Thanks everybody for watching. Be good to each other. So long, everybody.
Be safe out there.